Hi, everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm Marisa B, and today I have with me Karine Gordineer. She's a master herbalist, instructor, trainer. She's the founder of Green Girl Herbs and Healing. She is a practicing shaman. She is an animal communicator and healer. Hi, Karine. Thank you for coming today.
Hi, Marissa. So great to see you.
It's great to see you. I'm so thrilled that you're here. And today you're actually going to be speaking about the multidimensional power of plants in healing. Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about how you got involved with herbalism?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting because over the years as I've taught, and I've taught for probably over 25 years, as I listen to people's stories, I often hear, about their early interests in plants. I often hear, notes of my own story in there as well, which I think is really fascinating. So many people have had, father, mother, grandfather, great grandfather, whatever, that had some type of, remedy or something that they enjoyed using. And in my own story, my father, who was of Mohican ancestry, he had held on to that very deep, connection to the land and to the plants. And he was a plant person. He was really quite amazing. And so his day work was also involved with plants. He was a landscape designer. He designed some really beautiful gardens and, plantings and all different sorts of things like that. And so growing up, his herbal knowledge per se, I mean, he always felt that, especially as I got older, that, that my herbal knowledge had surpassed his. I never really quite felt that way because he would always still come up with things that, I was learning from him. But definitely my early, uh, you know, uh, childhood experiences played a tremendous influence on my getting into this. And so, we had gardens. My dad would show me what type of plants were okay to eat, what plants you shouldn't eat. He would use certain remedies, home remedies on me, for a poison ivy and that sort of thing. And we also spent a tremendous amount of time, in nature. I spent a lot of time in nature by myself, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it, when I think about it, because my mother was, very uh, she was always very aware of where I was and that sort of thing. And she was a little bit of a worrier. I used to call her a worrier, but somehow she would just sort of let me go, which was quite amazing when I think about it. So I was able to have that, non-structured time in nature. And that, helped me to develop relationships with all of nature, with plant beings, with animals, and to really kind of understand their language. Although I don't think that I necessarily had words for that, but it took me a long time, as I was growing up, it took me a long time to understand that not everyone, related to nature in that way. Not everyone saw the things that I saw or felt the things that I felt. And, so you kind of learn to not to talk about those things, not to really share them because no one else seems to, sort of have that, language as well, but at any rate, you get into kind of the workforce and that sort of thing. But I was always a seeker. I was always passionate about, anything spiritual or metaphysics. Even as a very young child, I would take out all the books in the library that I could on a number of different topics, even meditation and that sort of thing. And so it was something that continued into my early adulthood. And then at a point, it was sort of like the bulb sort of lit. And I was like, wow, I really need to delve into this further. And I always seemed to have friends that were quite a bit older than me. And, and they were into spirituality. And so, I had asked one of my friends who actually had a metaphysical bookshop going back. This was in the 80s, which you can imagine it wasn't quite as popular then as it is now. And so I, talked to her and I said, I really want to immerse myself in herbal learning and in the healing plants. And she introduced me to a friend of hers. And, then I began studying with her,
Mm-hmm.
and I studied with her for a number of years, and it was a fantastic experience. She had land upstate, and so sometimes I would go and spend weekends there, and I would go to her place, that
Mm-hmm.
was local here, and spend time with her there. And I learned all sorts of things from her, how to work with the plants, how to make different herbal remedies,
Mm-hmm.
and and then as I kind of continued, my sort of quest and so on, I took a lot of different types of trainings.
Mm-hmm.
When I came across shamanism in the late 90s, it was something that felt completely natural to me. I felt like I was really coming home, at that point. And it made total sense to me because to me, I feel like shamanism is sort of communicating with everything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it gave me also more of a language, a shared language to be able to talk about the things that I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, kind of I'm fast forwarding through a lot of a lot of
Mm-hmm.
details. I took Reiki training, and
Right.
so I did my Reiki master teacher training, and I think I started Reiki in 93 and 94, and then I did my Reiki
Oh,
master.
same year as me.
Yeah,
Same year
right.
as
Isn't
me.
that
I know
amazing?
when
That's
no one
amazing.
when no one knew what it was, really. Yeah.
Exactly, right. Yeah, which was amazing. And it was so awesome because you'd go, and it was this kind of sort of this group, and you'd have
Mm-hmm.
so much in common with these people, and there was the shared goals, the shared
Yes.
values, and everything. So it was really wonderful. It was such a wonderful time. And and I just continued. I trained with different
Mm-hmm.
shamanic practitioners. Eventually, I trained in more plant shamanism, which is, mainly where my work is focused.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know,
And you
in
have
in
a big, I mean, you train a lot of people and you teach a lot of people. You have courses ongoing all the time.
Yes, yeah, training is a big part of what I do. I have the Sacred Heart of Herbalism, which is a 10-month
Mm-hmm.
training, and I've been teaching that for actually going on 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going on 25 years, somewhere's around there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do a level 2 of that also, and then I have Shamanic Plant Medicine Journey, which is also another training. The Sacred Heart of Herbalism is more focused on the medicinal aspects
Mm-hmm.
of the plants, but we do get into plant shamanism and some of we do some things like flower essences and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, because in reality we are whole beings, and we
Mm-hmm.
really want to, when I work with clients, I really work with them on a holistic level in as much as possible. I mean, sometimes people come in and they're really looking more for
Mm-hmm.
just herbalism. They just want herbal wellness consultations,
Right.
and that's fine. But my recommendations sometimes, in addition, when
It's
I
the
create
whole
their wellness
person.
plans,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I will talk about meditation,
Mm-hmm.
getting outside, grounding with the earth, that sort of thing. That's also it's a part of healing.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Right
Yeah,
outside. I mean, it's just to go into the woods, just to go into the forest, the trees, just to be around that.
absolutely, absolutely. There's so much healing to be had
Mm-hmm.
there. Excuse me, so much healing.
And
So.
so I know that you have I know that the course, like you said, a 10-month course, and I know you do a lot of training of others, but is
Mhm.
there like, does someone have to be licensed? Do they have to be a master herbalist? Right? There's a number of steps to, no one just can call themselves that because they know plants or they work with plants.
Well, so here's the thing. So in the United States, there is not a third party
Okay.
certifying body of herbalists. So it's not a registered
Mm-hmm.
profession.
Mm-hmm.
However, well, and that's kind of, it's sort of the good news, bad news, because it keeps it within the hands of practitioners and more traditional training
Mm-hmm.
over the years that I've been teaching. There's been a number of certainly herbal information has become so widespread,
Mm-hmm.
and which is it's a great thing. But sometimes you people can be in the field that are not necessarily trained, and even if someone goes to a school and
Mm-hmm.
takes a 2-year training or something like that, there's really so much to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just, and to having the experience of working with people and working with the remedies. And when I work with students, I always advise them to, work with the herbs with yourself. So many
Hmm.
times, and we're in a different culture today where people often want to take trainings and then they want to go and work in that field. And you can
Yes.
go and you can get trainings in a weekend and go and be a this
Right.
or a that. And it doesn't, the training, those types of trainings, they may open the door, but they're
Hmm.
not going to make you a healer. You
Mm.
really need to work at it. And
And
so
there's so
I've
much to
always,
know, isn't there? Really,
oh
there's
my
so
gosh,
much to know.
there
Just
is
even
so
how
much
to
to know.
process, right? Processing plants is an
Oh
incredible
my God,
amount
yeah.
of work to know.
Absolutely. And that's another kind of sort of side note with things too. It's another, topic of
Hmm.
conversation and instruction when I'm, teaching students is that make sure you're not harvesting more than you can actually sit down and process because you need to process the plants right away. You can't
Hmm.
just, well, I'll get to them in a week. You've got to
Right.
work with them right away. And there's a whole, science into that. But so, when it comes to training and well, when it comes to the term master herbalist, it's kind of funny. You know, I will sometimes use the term more so to signify how much time I've spent
Hmm.
on, working with the plants.
Hmm.
But I always understand that in another regard, I'll never be a master herbalist. No
Right.
one ever will,
But
because the
see,
field
I
is
call you that because I know all the work that you do. And I've been
thank
following you
you.
for many, many years. And I know the
Thank you.
extensive training, the extensive work, the extensive
Yes.
courses. So I know. So that to me is
Yeah.
a master herbalist. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I always know that,
Yeah.
the plants know more than I will ever know
Hmm.
about them. They know more about themselves, and that the field is so incredibly vast. And there's about 400,000 plant species in the world. And
Wow.
I'll never master that ever. So from that perspective.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's, and with my students, like I said, I really encourage them to, take what they're learning, embody the work. That's one of the most important things. I don't care if my students come in and they learn, a couple of things, but if they really embody what they're learning, that's really what makes the difference. And I also try to help them to understand that, like what is covered in the 10-month course too. It's there's a lot there. There's a lot, and
Hmm.
sometimes people feel like, they have to learn it all in that period of time. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. You're going to work with this.
Hmm.
You're going to work with it every year, every season, and you're going to grow with this. This, provides a tremendous amount of information and knowledge but it's really no matter what trainings we take, it's always up to us to
Hmm.
really embody the work, and to
And
really do the work.
have you found that a lot more people are coming to the trainings nowadays?
I would say that over the years, definitely I have more students, in my trainings now than I did,
Hmm.
20-ish years ago. I think it goes in fits and spurts though too. I mean, because I can remember trainings years ago where I had quite a lot of students, but I would say yeah, it's probably more so now. It's probably been kicked up now, you know. And I think, I mean, overall, I think that's incredibly positive. I love the fact that
Hmm.
people are coming to the earth and coming to the plants and recognizing the power that is in our medicinal
Hmm.
plants. I mean, it's incredible, that we can step outside, and if we're not putting, pesticides and things on our land, we can harvest, and this is the other thing that I tell people too, like, don't underestimate what is growing right outside your door,
Right.
because it's a powerhouse of healing, the humble dandelion, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we can work with every single part of that plant.
Yes.
And we can work with it everything from sugar balancing, as a cardiotonic,
Hmm.
liver cleanse, kidney support, all these different types of things that we can work with this humble little plant, not to mention food. We
Yes.
can, so it's like, it's amazing. It's just amazing. And people also, I really try to help people to understand we don't need exotic plants. We don't
Hmm.
need to source plants from 6,000 miles away.
Right.
We can walk right outside our door, and many of the plants we can work with safely. They're easy
Hmm.
to identify and so on. And so people, that's the beauty of it, is that people can get started and begin immediately improving their own health. And I love that.
Well,
and
I'm in New York. I'm in New York. I
yeah.
think you are as well. And I
Yes,
mean,
yeah,
just outside my door, the amount of plants that are there. I
yes.
mean, I mean, a lot of them I use to make food, but I know that they also have medicinal value. But I do,
Absolutely.
yeah, I use a lot of that.
Yeah.
I forage on my own land.
Yeah.
And there's so much just here in my
Yeah.
area. It's
Yeah.
so
I
true.
I had done a talk at Stony Point Conference Center,
Mhm.
maybe it's a couple of years ago, and with it the talk I did a short plant ID, and I thought I would, oftentimes I go and I'll kind of map out. I didn't at that time. For that particular talk, I didn't map out my walk. I didn't have the time. But I walked out and there were so many plants. We didn't have to walk more than maybe
Mhm.
40 feet. And I probably spent a good half an hour, 40 minutes just talking about all of the plants that were in a very small area. It was
Mhm.
really quite incredible. And like right now we have goldenrod
Mhm.
growing in the Northeast, which I always have to defend goldenrod because invariably someone will say to me, I'm allergic. And
Yes.
yeah, I recently did a post on why you're not allergic to goldenrod.
Right.
And yeah, and it's kind of ironic because goldenrod is so showy and beautiful that it sort of
Mhm.
gets blamed for all the seasonal allergies, but the pollen of goldenrod is so dense that it's actually not wind pollinated, and it primarily spreads through its rhizomes. But the
Mhm.
ragweed that is growing and flowering at the same time,
Mhm.
which is lower growing but is wind pollinated and produces a profuse amount of pollen, that's the one that's causing everybody's seasonal allergies. But goldenrod, in fact, a simple goldenrod tea can
Mhm.
help to lessen the symptoms of
Of
seasonal
the
allergies.
right of the seasonal
Yeah, the runny
allergies.
nose and head pain and that sort of thing. So yeah, so it's really quite amazing, all of these, and at every season we can find
Mhm.
something, even in the
Yes.
wintertime. Yeah,
Yes.
so
And
it's
now, do
really
you
quite.
also cook with a lot of the herbs? Like, do you actually cook with it
I
yourself
do.
personally?
Yes, I do. I like to do wild food foraging as much as I
Yes.
can, and and despite the name, it doesn't really mean going out in the wild. It can,
Right.
but and of course, you always want to be careful about where you're harvesting, that you're allowed to harvest
Yes.
there. You know, but you can just go out in your yard and even in the garden. Like
Hmm.
I have a community garden where I garden, and I have a couple
Hmm.
plots there, and there's purslane that grows up, and
Yes.
there's plantain and all of these things, and so
Hmm.
and all of those are medicinal, but they're edible.
Hmm.
So I will
Yes.
I will take I'll harvest different greens
Hmm.
like plantain and dandelion and purslane and things like that,
Hmm.
and garlic mustard, which is
Hmm.
invasive, and it's a great way to use it. And so I'll make wild food salads, garlic mustard
Hmm.
pesto. I've made everything from dandelion fritters, which I love,
Oh,
and
I do
which
too. I make them all the
aren't they
time. Yeah.
awesome?
Yes, they're
Yeah, they're so.
fabulous. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of my favorite things about
Yeah.
spring. And to dandelion bread, and I mean
Hmm.
there's just this is the way that we lived. We
Right.
lived off of the land,
Yeah.
and um I believe that this is something that we can step back into. And that is always the underpinning of my teachings. And so,
Hmm.
when I talk about herbs healing or plants healing on all levels, it's really it's very deep, and it's very multidimensional, and the
Hmm.
plants are as well. I mean, plants have been on this earth for I mean, flowering plants, I think 156 million years or something like
Hmm.
that. And if you look at plants, I mean, it's you know I'll probably screw up the numbers, maybe it's like 450 million years or somewhere's around there. But plants had to make the decision. Photosynthesis first began in the ocean, and plants had to make the decision to organize and to come on
Hmm.
on up to land. And we don't think about these things. I've studied paleobotany, and it's really kind of mind bending when you think we didn't always have soil. you know
Right.
um it wasn't that was something that had to come about through
Hmm.
through evolution, and or uh things decaying and so on. So, the thing is, the plants have gone through their own evolution, and they are incredibly resilient. I mean,
Hmm.
and so, you know, from multiple levels, plants can help us heal on all levels. My work is really, completely based on that is, humans, we've stepped out of, the natural cycle, and we've
Right.
stepped away from the earth. And so in large ways and in small ways, we can begin to step back, but we can start in very simple ways.
Hmm.
And so the plants, they really call to us. They call us out there. If we listen to their call and we go out and we start harvesting, or we get curious about, this beautiful flower or whatever it is that first
Hmm.
attracts us, it's like if we run with that, that can be a real guiding light for us to step back, to begin stepping back
Hmm.
into that right relationship. We can do simple things like, even gardening or wildcrafting from our yard,
Hmm.
or, composting. And we begin to step back into those cycles where, we're more aware that we are a part of nature. And
Hmm.
we are, whether we're aware of it or not, we are. But when we try to, you know, ignore our true nature, we cause all of these issues.
Hmm.
Even simple things like the advent and the invention of the electric light. How much it's messed with our circadian rhythms. And we can do simple
Hmm.
things. At night. Just beginning to turn the lights down. You know, begin to move away from the electronic devices and those sorts of things, and begin to get back into those right rhythms. And I think sometimes people don't realize, like, our human bodies are just, they're incredible, but they're very fine tuned, and
Hmm.
we have these chemical messengers that, our hormones are chemical messengers, and they can get really out of whack by, inappropriate foods,
Hmm.
the light issues and that sort of thing. And in addition to that, we also have this finer energetic body that surrounds us, our
Yes.
energies, our auras, our chakras, and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And those are also very tuned in to the earth and the plants.
Hmm.
And so again, when the more time we're spending outside, the more that, our auric fields are getting
Hmm.
cleansed and strengthened. When we spend time, connecting to the earth,
Hmm.
our lower chakras are getting, strengthened and grounded. We're grounding with the
Hmm.
earth. And it's interesting too, because, again, when I first started doing energy healing, and that's, a part of my work as well. um, there wasn't as much information out there as there is now. So, it was kind of the seven chakras and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
There wasn't really awareness of all the transpersonal chakras and so on. And
Right.
as I was working on people, I started to notice, I started to find other energy centers. I see you have
Yeah.
a little
Life,
visitor.
life happens. Life happens. Here he is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. I love it when I'm teaching students, because I do a lot of online teaching now, and I'll always see their pets kind of coming through, especially when I watch the replay. It's fantastic. I love it. So I started to discover other energy centers, and especially I noticed
Hmm.
that, like many of the people at one period of time that I was working with, I started to become aware of their Earth Star chakra, which it exists about approximately anywhere from like uh, 10 inches to 12 inches below the bottom of our feet, and it connects us in with the earth. And I started to become aware of this energy center, and I noticed a lot of people's Earth Star chakras, were out of whack. They were, kind of shifted. Many of them were closed. And so I started to work a lot with people's, Earth Star
Hmm.
chakras. And it's so important too, when we are on a spiritual path and we want to develop, our kind of our higher
Hmm.
abilities and that sort of thing, the upper chakras, that, we are grounded, and
Hmm.
so there's, like, you can see where spending time on the earth can help. Just being out on the earth can help, to ground us and to make us
Hmm.
more centered and more at ease in our bodies, and to, connect with our higher selves, more readily, more easily,
Hmm.
and in a more sustained way, where it's not like coming in fits and spurts, but it's more of a kind of a sustained stream, um, but it's really kind of getting out onto the earth with some level of consistency,
Oh,
really,
I
really
have to
helps.
agree. I mean, when I
Yeah.
moved up here, I moved up from New York City many years ago, and I had started the garden and I was always outside. And then, you just like put that by the wayside and you're involved with career and work and so many
Absolutely.
things. And then I finally said, my time was being occupied by so much else, so
Yep.
many other things, and not the things that I wanted to do. And so now, I mean, I've gone completely back to the gardening. I've actually permacultured the whole property. So I'm
That's
using a lot
fantastic.
of, and because I was concerned with chemicals, I knew that this land had
Yeah.
not had chemicals on it. There were very few
Hmm.
people living on the particular property. And so I knew we didn't use chemicals either. And I was contented to be able to forage on my own land and to grow my own vegetables without any
Hmm.
pesticides, because I was concerned with
Absolutely. Yeah.
the food that's out there and really what we're getting, and
Hmm. Hmm.
how valid is it. I know that there are all kinds of legal issues with the certified organic and how many years chemicals could be on the property,
Hmm.
but I knew here there were no chemicals, and there, as I said, there were very few people who lived here and on this land, so we were happy to start the permaculture,
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
start trying to make more
Hmm.
ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Well,
have to agree with you that definitely.
you bring up so many important issues too, and so much of what, and I have so much understanding because I worked in the corporate sector. So
Mm-hmm,
I didn't right away do this full time.
mm-hmm,
There didn't seem in the beginning to be the support for it. And I did like everyone else, does. And I,
mm-hmm,
went out and got the what I would call the day job. And
mm-hmm,
it was, I had to work very, very hard to keep hold of, the plants and nature and so on. And so I think it's one of the things too that makes me, unique in that I really understand what people go through and how
mm-hmm,
hard it can be, and I can draw on those experiences. Every lunch hour, I worked in a few major corporations over the time,
mm-hmm,
and I would always find the wild place that I could go. So I found wild places like all throughout Westchester. And,
mm-hmm,
I hunted the plants down wherever I was. Sometimes when I would drive home, from work before
mm-hmm.
I got on that in that commute, I would stop off at a local park and I would, walk around just looking at the
It's
plants.
like
I
recharge.
wouldn't
Yeah, it's a recharge,
exactly
right?
that, and
Yeah.
also just to really connect with them, So I always found places,
Mm-hmm,
wherever I was, I always found places, that I could go, and I always, found a connection with the plants and the earth
mm-hmm.
and some way that I could incorporate that. And it wasn't it is absolutely challenging, but it's not impossible. I know that
Right.
like too. And I think that's like really, really important. When I would drive to work in the morning, I'd have my nettle tea.
Yes.
Everybody else might have their coffee, but I had my nettle tea and everything. And, so I was always incorporating. And it was funny because, the last position actually where I worked in sustainability because I was always trying to incorporate that into what I was doing. And, people knew, like if people had a headache and they were, starting to explore alternatives rather than,
Mm-hmm.
popping an ibuprofen or something, they would
Right.
come and they would ask me, do you have anything? Invariably, I had a, whole slew of, herbal teas and things like that, to be helpful. So, there's, like I said, there's so many different ways that and like I said, we can take small steps so that we don't have to overwhelm
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of a
Right.
thing, and as you did, you made the move and you began, incorporating more, and it is, and
Mhm. And
you're
we
just
still have
incorporating more.
issues here because they're actually they're spraying or something, which it's not near me,
Mm,
but it's vibrating. They had come this
yeah,
morning to say. So life does, right? Even though I've
yeah,
done all of that permacultured
yeah.
and I'm in the country but still life somehow
Hmm.
impinges it's or grasps us, holds us. They came this morning to say
Yeah.
that they were going to be spraying roadways in the area. So,
Mm, wow.
so
Yeah.
that's where
Well,
the noise comes from, and I can hear the noise coming through. And I always say, somehow life always gets its way in there.
yeah. Well, and that's one of the things too, like when I work with people, I always like my students, there's a whole thing on, on foraging and wildcrafting.
Mm-hmm.
It's really an art, especially when we're foraging for medicines. because, the plant, constituents will change over the season and so on. But one of a very important aspect of foraging is exactly that, is knowing where you're foraging, which is why one of the reasons, exactly what you're talking about, is one of the reasons that we don't forage, close to roadways.
Yes.
Which is, and it's funny because sometimes it can be infuriating because, the St. John's wort will grow, right in the median, some because it loves the sun so much. But you can't forage that
What
because,
I get angry about is when they spray everything.
yeah,
It makes me insane. I understand the principle behind it, so it doesn't grow into the roadway or rip up the pavement and so forth, but it makes me crazy. They just burn across everything. It's just so horrible with all the chemicals.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I'd rather if they do it it seems like in my area they seem to do more mowing than anything, which I'm not fond of, but I'd rather that than the chemicals. But we generally say
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But at least like, staying away from, like harvesting major roadways and things like that. And I always tell people too, when you really kind of step on the plant path, it seems like people will come out of the woodwork who have land that they're not spraying on, they haven't sprayed on, that will have a patch of mugwort that they really want gone.
Right.
And you'll run across these people, so it's kind of like have faith, put the intention out there, and you'll find places that you can, because for much of my young life, I was either living in a condo or an apartment or something like that, and so I had to be very creative about how I wildcrafted and where I wildcrafted. So I would find, people that had land that, I could forage on and that sort of thing. So yeah, but you find that, but as far as, certainly, and everything that we're talking about right here, it makes you just, becoming involved with, the plants, it really makes you so much more aware of everything that goes on, to our environment. And, one of the things that I do love about my work is, and I have everyone from the newest newbie coming into my classes, and also people who have had some, have some experience. I've even had some other herbalists, take my classes, because, we're always in a state of learning. I'm always learning every day. There's
absolutely. I'm with you. Yeah, me too. That's true.
And
you do.
I think that's also a hallmark of who we are as people that do this type of work. So but one of the things that's so inspiring to me is when someone comes in who, in the beginning, everything is just a green wall. They can't really distinguish one green thing from another. And then, in 10 months, and often, and of course it's happening all along, they begin to really see, and it's almost like those plants just start to blink into existence for them. It all starts to wake up, and they begin to make these connections. And I've had people, come into my classes that have been so enamored with the green world and so inspired that they've changed careers. And they've launched themselves into, new careers. And certainly, you need additional training, although I've had people that have taken my courses and, have, worked at it, and they have also gone on to create herbal remedy companies, as well. And that's a beautiful thing. I love to see, my students creating, their remedies and helping, helping others and so on, and their families. And it's a wonderful feeling, to know that it's just continuing to grow, and, people are taking this knowledge and they're passing it on, which is, what we need everybody to do. The more people that wake up to this, just the better our world is going to be.
Yes.
Absolutely. But when we engage with the plants, energetically, on a purely energetic level, even, they have really the ability to help us to shift out of so many different emotional states, in addition to helping us to reconnect to the earth. They really can help us on a very personal level, and when we look at, indigenous cultures in really around the world, we can see how ancient peoples, and even cultures, and especially cultures that have not, let go of their, their traditional living, that they understand that everything has consciousness. The earth has consciousness. the plants have consciousness. One of the things that I tell my students that was told to me, uh, is that, the plants that grow around you are the ones that you most need. So pay attention, to who's showing up. And that becomes very true. And, like myself, I've over the years, and this where I'm at now, I've been here for over a decade. And when I first came here, you know, uh, the plants that are here now were not here when I first came here. So when we move around, when we're engaged in working with the plants, they show up. They really, really show up. So there's definitely, nature has this intelligence and a magic to it. And it's funny because I can talk about some of the scientific aspects, but there's also a magic. And I think magic does run on natural laws. It's just natural laws that we don't understand yet. And that is not necessarily embraced by the greater population or the scientific.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. It hasn't been discovered yet. I mean, do you remember Karelian photography? The Karelian photography and how it showed this luminescence around every plant, every leaf, every flower. Absolutely. I mean, before people didn't know that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I always, and that's one of the things that I talk about a lot, and I try to remind my students too, is that, and just people in general, because I do share a lot on social media, also, I see my role as an educator and kind of a bridge between the plant world and humanity, one of the bridges between, the plant world and humanity. And, just understanding that just because science can't prove something today doesn't make it any less valid,
Right.
And for people too, to trust their own experience. I think that that's really important. The more that we get in touch with our deeper selves too, the more that we can trust that. We can trust our own experience. Well,
now I'm going to have to look at my yard, exactly what came up new, because this year it seems to have burst forth with so many things that and grown just tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just plopped in different areas that, I was saying it's the birds that was moving the seed because they've gotten all over the land, different things in different areas. And that whole idea of that, the healing power of plants and the multidimensionality of that healing. It's not just making a tincture or, making a tea, but everything that plant entails. It's a lot. It's a lot to study. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to keep, as knowledge within. As you said, you're learning every day. So I think that's like a wonderful thing. And I know that you do teach courses now. Are you doing online or in person, or do you do hybrid? How is that all working? Because I know you have these extended courses for people.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because of course COVID changed a lot of things for us. And for most of my career I taught in person. But I went to online in 2020. And primarily I've really stayed online. I still do some plant identification walks, and those have been in person. Although I do have a poisonous plant class that is online. But it seems that people, have kind of, for the most part, prefer the online learning. And it's always an evolution. I'm always working with it. But a number of institutions, also are making that shift as well. I do a lot of trainings classes, with the New York One training, and actually other classes with the New York Botanical Garden.
Right.
And they've a lot of their classes are online now as well. I have a course with them, Herbalism Beyond the Basics, that I teach that starts in January. It's a shorter course, and we've been kind of playing around with the schedule, for that, and that's been a great class. I've been teaching with them for, I forget, a number of years, but then we moved it online, and it's been online, the whole time. So there's been a number of, I'm still open to teaching in person, but it seems like it is a lot more convenient for people to take.
And I think it opens it up to more people, right? I mean, if somebody's across the country or across the world, they can actually take courses that they're interested in.
Yeah, which is great. I have a bunch of students now on the West Coast, and really actually various places throughout the United States, at different times and up and down the Eastern Seaboard, which is really nice. It's opened me up to just a whole different bunch of people, and certainly stretched my plant identification skills, because
because don't they have different ones? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some that are the same, but then there's always other ones that are specific, to native to a specific area.
Now, do you make trips to those areas, like to learn more about them? Because as you said, you're always learning and growing yourself. Do you actually go to those locations to see different plants in person?
I haven't recently, but in the past, I was doing a lot more traveling, and I was observing and learning about plants like in other areas. So I have traveled across the country, in California and Washington, the state, and really up and down the seaboard, and the eastern part of our country. And really, I've been kind of all over the place. I mean, Texas and Tennessee and that sort of thing. So, like I said, I don't do as much traveling now, but I do a lot. I mean, I'm still out there every day, like here, and drivable distances more so. Just really the plant identification skills are something I work on like every day. It's one of those things. Yeah.
And then you say you offer that you do some of that in person for people.
Yes.
That's a shorter.
Yes. Yeah, that would be like a 2.5 hour course, that sort of thing, class. Which is nice. And I enjoy that, very, very much. And the students do too. They love just kind of being in the presence of the plants and all that. So yeah. So the poisonous plants course, that one, like I said, that one is online. It's fairly extensive. Actually I think it's a total of 4 or 5 hours. That one is. So it's pretty extensive. It's one of the topics that's so important when we begin to forage. We always want to be aware of what poisonous plants any plant that we may be harvesting, is there a poisonous plant look-alike? Something like wild carrot, a person newer to harvesting could potentially confuse that with poison hemlock or potentially water hemlock. And it's interesting too, because to help people to understand all of the different things that go into plant identification. It goes even beyond the plant itself, and we have to pay very careful attention to just the leaves, stems, flowers if it's in flower, the scent, but also where it's growing and when it's flowering also gives us some indication as to what the plant might be. So there's a lot that goes into that as well.
So now, how can somebody find out about your information? I mean, I'd like to put everything in the description. I'm sure that audience members are going to ask questions. How can we contact you and
absolutely
about your courses?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I'm pretty active on social media. My website is greengirlherbs.net.
And I will definitely put that in the description so that people can go directly to it. And I'm sure you have all the courses listed there as well.
I do. Yes. Yeah. All of the regular courses are there. And then on the calendar would be any of the shorter courses that I'm teaching, either through my school or through NYBG or any place else, is there. And then also I'm very active on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. The YouTube channel is a work in progress.
Well, those I will actually put those links in too, because I know some people like to go and see the social media posts and so forth, or they like to follow, and so I can put all those links in.
Absolutely.
And you said you have a YouTube channel.
I do. Yeah, I'm working
started.
I'm working on growing that more. I really primarily focused on talking about plant ID. I'd like to expand it out, a little bit more. But certainly people can get started with, just learning a little bit about each of the plants, there and so on. And like I said, even on Facebook, I try to share, things that, are relatable to people and can kind of help, to inspire people and to give them some usable information. So, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And now you say that there might be a new course coming up, right? You're doing something new in the fall.
Well, I may have a I may have a new course coming up, but I think the one you're talking about is the shamanic plant medicine journey. So that one I've been teaching that for, it's newer than the Sacred Heart of Herbalism. I think I've been teaching it for maybe 6 or 7 years, I think. And that has more of a focus on the energetic aspects, the energetic and spiritual aspects of the plants. And it's, I have to say, I mean, I know obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a wonderful course. I mean, I just love it. I feel like every time I do it, I get to immerse myself even more, in the plants. And for each class, we work with one plant. And so we're really immersing ourselves in their energies. I do share about the medicinal aspects, but the focus is more so on how do we engage with this plant energetically and spiritually. And it's kind of more of a shamanically based, program, but you don't need to have experience in that in order to take the program. You don't have to have any experience, in it at all. Really just a desire to learn and to want to, connect, in this way. So that'll begin on November 18th, and that runs for 9 months. And I always say the plants lead that course. It's always the plants that, let me know, or which plants am I gonna work with this time? So yeah, so it's wonderful. And people, students learn, basically how to connect with the plants, how we can learn to communicate with them, how they can help us to shift our bodies. So we talk about, our energy body. We talk about, the aura and the chakras, and how can we work with the plants to balance chakras or clear chakras, or, that sort of thing. And how can we learn to hear their messages for us in our lives, so it's really,
that sounds so interesting, right? So powerful as well.
Yeah, it is. The work is, like I said, it's amazing. And, I feel, blessed to be able to work with these amazing beings. And, for me, it's like, it's new and exciting every day. It's not anything I ever feel like, oh yeah, I got that down. It's always fresh and new. And, I never know what they're gonna come up with. So yeah, so it's wonderful. It's really wonderful.
Well, it all sounds wonderful. I definitely will have to list that too, because you said that's November. What's the date again when that's starting?
It's November 18th.
November 18th. And it's a 9-month course.
It's 9 months. It meets once a month. And then I have a private group set up for interaction, in between. It is live online. So we meet live, and then it's recorded. So people would also have,
in case they miss the one class, they can catch up.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And is that how the other course is running for the herbalism also at this point? Is that the same way? It's live when you run the course, and then they have the capability of catching the repeat.
Yep. Yeah.
And that one you said was 12 months. That's a 12-month.
That one's actually 10 months.
Oh, 10
months.
That one's
10 months. Yeah. And then the second level is actually 9 months. So basically 10 months is the first level. So and it's a really wonderful journey. And it's, like I said, it's just inspiring and incredible to watch students come in and then be able to, create their herbal apothecary and help themselves and their families with all of these different things, and even just keeping themselves well and healthy throughout the seasons. We talk quite a lot about just so many different topics, like winter wellness and herbal first aid and adaptogens and nervines. How do we nourish our nervous system with these plants? I mean, just so many wonderful things that we get into. So
it all sounds wonderful. I saw some of the work that you had done. You had quite a few things posted on social media where you were more in the kitchen with the herbs.
Yes.
So I thought it was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in that class, in each class we have a demo. So I will demonstrate how to do herbal remedies in every class. So they're learning, they can either follow along or they can watch the video afterwards and then make the remedies. So, and that actually is a certificate level class. So students that complete the requirements,
that's good to know. Yes.
We'll get a certificate at the end, signifying all the work that they've put into it and everything. So yeah. And it's and some students take take it just for the experience, and
Right.
they're not looking to get their certificate, but
Hmm.
others that are, it'll signify the work, that they've done and the time
Hmm.
that they've put in. So yeah, which is really, really wonderful.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
Oh
I
my
mean, there's
gosh,
just so much,
absolutely.
right? You could
Yeah,
go on and
yeah,
on. And I really want to thank you for coming
absolutely.
today. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you took the time to come and speak with the audience. It's such a, I mean, at least something that's near and dear to my heart. I feel it's such an important thing for everyone to know
Absolutely.
how to get in
Yeah,
nature and to work with plants. I hope you
yeah.
can come back again.
I would love
Once
to.
again,
Yeah, and
there's so much to talk about, and I will definitely leave all the
yeah.
information in the description
Hmm.
for everybody to see.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thank you so much for having me on. Believe me, I could have gone on and on and on, but I know we only have so much time.
Yes, I know. And that's what
But
I'm saying. These subjects could go on and on. I mean, you could
yeah,
do, once a month a talk on something. It really, and it's
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I, I really feel it's so important. And I know that you're so busy, and I really appreciate you coming to speak to everyone.
And thank you so much for asking me. And I love the series that you're, all of the interviews, not series, but all of the interviews that
Thank
you're
you,
doing. I
Karine.
started to watch, some of them, and it's been really wonderful. I
Oh,
love the work
thank
that you're
you.
doing, bringing
Thank
all of
you.
this information out to people. It's so important. So thank you,
Oh,
for
I
what you're
thank you for
doing.
saying that. I mean, that's really what I
Yeah,
wanted to do. I wanted to open it up to really to the planet to see how we're all going to
yeah,
evolve and thrive with what's
yeah,
here for us that
yeah,
I don't think we've been looking at and sadly
yeah.
sometimes have been abusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But so, like I said, so timely and so needed. So I think it's wonderful. And I'm enjoying, getting
Oh,
to see the
thank you.
interviews myself. So that's really wonderful. So
Thank
yeah.
you. And
Yes.
I
So
thank
my
you
pleasure.
again. Oh, you're quite welcome. And I will speak with you soon. Have a wonderful afternoon.
I will. You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.